Your cameraman was only dazed by the blast. He is asking to remain in the field. If he stays behind cover, I'll allow this. But at the next sign of danger, I'm pulling the plug. Understood?
Yes. Thank you, Sergeant. Although stunned by the effects of a proximity explosion, I'm relieved to say that Macro Lens, his camera, and his escort are all unharmed. The source of their brush with death is a solitary T-62 that is nearing the west entrance of Albeit as I speak. The tank is wreaking havoc on the Marine rear defenses. Suffice it to say, should this lone tank be allowed to enter the settlement, our collective goose is cooked. Wait. Something unexpected has just occurred. Stay tuned for details. This is CyberNag reporting.
Indicative of the ebb and flow of modern combat, the initiative of battle at Albeit once again tempts a shift in polarity. Isolated and subject to annihilation, the gaunt custodians of Objective Keystone cling to their crumbling charge with the tenacity of a wounded badger guarding its den from a pack of ravenous wolves. Yet, despite their predicament, the Marine scouts are secure in the knowledge that they are no longer the only boots on the ground. To the southwest and to the rescue enters a detachment of frontline armor and infantry. Reminiscent of the horse soldiers of frontier lore, these Marines preface the pending sunrise with a gallant charge to the field, intent on snatching victory from the proverbial jaws of defeat. The time is 03:33 hours. Concerned that their arrival to the field of battle may not have been punctual enough to intervene in the Iranian ground assault that now threatens to overrun their lightly equipped brethren in Albeit, the men of Company D increase their furtive march through the wadi to a quick-time pace, despite the prospect of encountering hostiles within the meandering dry wash. Comprised of a mere 4 vehicles, the Marines' linchpin to success in this crucial engagement hinges on a platoon of tanks that commence a gradual advance through a sea of darkness that is now dissipating and thus threatens to divulge their presence by dawn's early light. The M1 is a 57-ton heavy battle tank of American design. Christened the Abrams after World War II tank ace and future commander of U.S. Armed Forces, General Creighton Abrams, the M1 boasts uncommonly formidable firepower with its gyroscopically controlled 120mm smooth-bore main gun. Despite being amongst the heaviest of all tanks, the Abrams features a jet fuel-powered gas turbine engine that drives a cutting-edge conveyance and suspension system, thus making it atypically quick and stable over most any terrain type. Of the 3 versions of the Abrams in active service, the Marine Corps has elected to continue fielding the 2nd-generation variant, known as the M1A1. With its technical upgrades, the A1 is comparable to the Army's M1A2. In conjunction with its highly trained and disciplined crews, the M1's state-of-the-art battle technology and superlative armor protection combine to make the American Abrams an extremely versatile AFB, and perhaps the most intimidating core battle tank in the entire world. Having entered the combat zone south of the Wadi Akaret, Captain Ricks and his haggard scout troop are graced with the presence of 1st Tank Platoon, Company C. Commanded by Lieutenant Lance Phillips, this armored quartet is lightning in a bottle and poised for action.
After encountering our fair share of action in Syria, our tank company was pulled out of the line for rest and refit. My particular platoon was temporarily assigned to a field station south of Tikrit. At the time of the Iranian invasion, we were the only NATO armor in the vicinity of the oil basin. Along with a company of reserve infantry, we were ordered to support one of our own recon units at a vital road junction that was so remote, it was nearly inaccessible. This was, of course, Albeit. Upon arrival, we spread out along the plain in combat formation and began scanning the field for potential threats. It wasn't long before we observed a single stationary T-62 attacking the village. The tank was so preoccupied with its demolition duty that they failed to detect our rearward approach. I took it upon myself to impart a proper introduction. As we advanced, another target of opportunity presented itself to the whole of the platoon. Using infrared sensors, we located the heat signature of a mobile AAA platform sticking out like a sore thumb on the far ridge line. Nearly in unison, 3 AP rounds were sent at range. All 3 scored hits. Although we had purged 2 AFVs in quick succession, I was well aware of the fact that enemy armor was looking down on the plane from somewhere near reference point Casbah. Despite the urgency of the situation at hand, we proceeded into the night with discretion.
As yet undetected by the Marine tanks on the far side of the wadi, the lone wolf T-62 creeps ever nearer the settlement's western threshold. Like an overmatched boxer swinging haymakers, Coyote 4 attempts to repulse the tank once more via a continuous volley from their chain gun. Realizing that the 25mm high-explosive shells are achieving little effect, the T-62 halts its temporary repelling action and draws bore sight on the crippled LAV. Struck with a 115mm high-explosive round, the Coyote is finally put out of commission. However, 3 of its crew survive the ordeal. With the tank's ingress into the village interior looming large, the Marines are presented with a gift of grace. During its fiery demise, Fox 2 expels an unprepared tow missile from its inventory, which lands amidst the salvage of the northwest compound. Recovered by a lone Marine, the errant warhead is promptly delivered to the depleted stores of Fox 1. Concealed behind the north wall, Fox 1 quickly loads and arms the projectile. Upon attaining target lock, the missile proves fully functional. Flying true to form, it expunges the imposing armored threat from the Marines' rear flank. Indicative of the nature of war, potential calamity has been averted by sheer happenstance. Without delay, the shocked Iranian crew exits their burning vehicle, yet opts to pursue a course of action that astounds their Marine counterparts. Rather than withdrawing from combat, the tankers advance on the village with personal weapons. Intent on reaping a measure of retribution, both the MTVR crew and the survivors of Coyote 4 leap forward and engage the highly exposed foursome. Caught in a crossfire, the Iranians hit the dirt short of their goal, only to have a precision grenade toss end their ill-fated excursion in a single climactic instant. Inside the Sultan's dagger, the Iranian command and observation teams monitor the situation on the desert floor with nervous anticipation. For Aziz, the abrupt demise of 3 of their AFVs suggests that superiority of force may be slipping from their grasp. Their duel against a ticking clock and an equally uncompromising Marine garrison has left them diminished, both tactically and numerically.
إلى أن المراقب العادي قد يبدو كما لو أن لدينا هجوم على القرية وكان لا يمكننا.
To the casual observer, it might have appeared as though our assault on the village was unstoppable. Nothing could possibly prevent us from overrunning the residual defenses and taking control of the crossroads. On the other hand, impressions can be deceiving, and in this case, they were. Because of the limitations of our night optics, it was difficult to confirm the presence of a new participant to the fray. Yet, the rapid termination of multiple AFVs led us to believe that enemy armor had found its way to the battlefield. As you Americans like to say, this event was a real game changer. Since time itself was now even more of an adversary than before, the infantry was directed to expedite the capture of Albeit at all cost. However, the commandant refused to commit his final few mobile tanks to the effort. Instead, he insisted on withdrawing them until ambient light conditions were more conducive for engaging the enemy armor. As for my observation staff and I, the logic behind this course of action rendered our hearts devoid of expectation.
From atop the town hall, Team Snake takes advantage of the frenzied and unorganized grouping of Wadi assault troops as they near the earthen bridge. The Grenadier lobs a rifle grenade into the basin, which lands amongst a cluster of confused men, producing 3 casualties. Momentarily lacking covering fire from the only heavy machine gun still operational within the fortress, the infantry therefore receive assistance from the command staff itself, whose ranged small arms volley proves totally ineffectual. In contrast, the lone surviving tank of the T-62-75 Company methodically bore sights the town hall from its static position on the lip of the wadi and commences bombarding the building to good effect. Likewise, the MV tank stranded along 1080G joins in on the effort by taking aim at the freight office, albeit with a constrained angle of attack and a wholly compromised targeting system. To the good fortune of Captain Ricks and Team Mongoose, all 3 shells fired from the impaired T-62 are intercepted by the intervening wreck of Coyote 3, which is promptly set ablaze. As for the reservist tank, there is no such obstruction. As Snake and his team scramble to abandon their besieged building, an ensuing strike drops the Grenadier as he shuttles down the staircase. Although at his heels, Snake and his spotter are both unharmed. Exiting the disintegrating structure minus 2 men, they rejoin the LT outside. Within seconds of their escape, the Wadi tank unleashes the last of its high-explosive rounds. The municipal building shudders under the impact and collapses. Again under fire from the bastion, the evicted Marines scurry to take refuge in the adjoining battle-scarred dwelling, their last viable point of elevation. Complying with the Commandant's orders, the Sand Scouts continue to scamper down the face of the dune in an effort to not only draw nearer the settlement, but to draw the fire of any hidden defenses prior to the impending infantry charge. Under the overwatch of a medium machine gun, their advance is suspiciously uneventful. On the reverse slope, even the headquarters tank approaches its destination unchallenged. For Captain Ricks, this is simply part of the game plan, given the current state of affairs.
There was no alternative other than to let the enemy come to us. Our complement and firepower was now far too limited to engage in preemptive combat. In the depression just beyond the south perimeter, 2 entire infantry platoons were staging for assault. I expected them to assail our primary defensive line at any moment. Keep in mind, this was a position manned by nothing more than the 14 scouts of 2nd Platoon. I was informed that our reinforcements were navigating the wadi at a full gallop in an effort to come to our aid before it was too late. However, they were still some distance away, and becoming fatigued. Taking a calculated risk that Company D would deal with any hostiles west of the land bridge, I ordered Charlie and Delta teams to relocate across the dirt road to the southeast trench, in order to consolidate our firepower. Consequently, I gave the troop the green light to engage the enemy at will. Little did I know how fortuitous this decision would be to our survival.
With the Sand Scouts having reached a knoll within visual range of the village, the troops of the Iranian East Pincer began to systematically descend the dune, starting with a machine gun crew. Bounding forward to an interim position where they can provide suppressive fire for the balance of the platoon, the duo is greeted by a burst of lead from Fox 1's Pintle machine gun, which fells the gunner and his weapon. With this event, the attention of the snipers is drawn to the east flank. Demonstrating cool efficiency, Mongoose singles out the No. 2 machine gun crew lying prone on the crest of the dune and dispatches the ammunition feeder. Meanwhile, the grenadier tilts his firearm skyward and, with equally impressive skill, drops a rifle grenade behind the knoll, killing 2 of the partially concealed enemy scouts. At approximately the same time, Snake reaches the 2nd floor of his new digs and establishes a base set through a north-facing window. Detecting a soldier making a play to recover the latent No. 1 machine gun, he quickly dopes his scope and squeezes off a round that ends the sortie. Their previous cannonade having been squandered due to the liability of bore sighting, the stranded MV tank switches targets to the adjacent building, masking the last active Coyote. Although on target, the T-62 only succeeds in exhausting its remaining supply of high-explosive shells. As if taunting an already frustrated Iranian task force, the devastated edifice teeters on the brink of ruin, yet refuses to tumble. Like the calm before a storm, the field at Albeit descends into a disquieting silence. For its combatants, the relevance is unmistakable. The next moments portend to be the tipping point towards the eventual outcome of this unheralded battle. With the exception of sporadic gunfire, the only sound penetrating the pre-dawn darkness is the chatter of M1 track links traversing an unguarded plain. A facetious preamble to the main event, a random trio of Iranians consisting of a medic and 2 tankers crawl from the West Wadi with recovered infantry weapons in hand. Brave but foolhardy, their goal of reaching the village whilst the Marines are distracted by the main assault is thwarted by the footbound crew of Coyote 4. Symbolic of the crack of a starter's pistol, the report of the American M4 rifles inaugurates a new round of hostilities. Like a racehorse leaving the chute, the Wadi infantry ascend the dry wash and form an impromptu skirmish line at the crest. Rising from their earthen lair, the Marines of 2nd Platoon initiate a withering exchange of automatic weapons fire that shatters the transitory moment of calm. With the aid of their night vision goggles, the Marines react to the assault with gunfire that is considerably more accurate and judicious than the indiscriminate barrage of their foe. Despite the specter of death hovering all about them, the brave leathernecks fall back on their training and calmly go about the business of dispatching one Iranian soldier after another from the multitude of available targets. Unfortunately, the horrific characteristics of such a firefight are not without cost. Even as the disaffected MTVR crew races up the South Trench to augment the defense, the men of 2nd Platoon begin sustaining the inevitable casualties. Like fuel to a firestorm, the close-quarter slugfest attracts peripheral participation. However, in spite of their numerical superiority, it is the Iranian assault troops who suffer a disadvantage. Minus armor and heavy weapons support, they are but a single fist of combat. Conversely, the Marines can call upon auxiliary resources. Coyote 1 reacts to the attack by withdrawing from their overwatch position and moving to the fight, whilst simultaneously suppressing the east pincer. Likewise, the 2 sniper teams redirect their focus onto the Wadi Shelf, knowing full well that 2nd Platoon cannot survive such a volatile fracas without assistance, no matter how courageous they might be. Not surprisingly, Snake and Mongoose commence scoring their own share of hits from their elevated perches eschew the struggle. Regardless of their contribution to the growing enemy headcount, the wholly uneven odds take an immediate toll on the Marine Scouts as 4 members of Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie teams succumb to the mass salvo of Iranian small arms.
As an astute philosopher once remarked, it is always darkest before the dawn. In the case of the Battle of Albeit, this has both figurative and literal meaning. Juxtapose the first flicker of daybreak, a glimmer of hope has graced the Marine garrison. As disaster loomed imminent, the Iranian tank assault was swept aside by the hand of fate. Moreover, we now have visual confirmation of an event of equal significance. Marine armor has entered the field. However, just when it appeared as though our chances of survival had improved, a savage firefight erupted near the village's southern outskirts, which continues unabated. Its ferocity suggests that this struggle is far from over. For VNN, this is CyberNet reporting.
Within the solitary sweep of a calculated minute, the encounter at Albeit has escalated to a level of intensity that bodes disaster for one or both of its disparate combatants. For the Iranian infantry sallying forth from the Wadi, the express loss of 14 men does not diminish the gravity of their assault, as a lone squad of shock troops breach the battle line and threaten to assail the Marines within their own trenches. For the travailed leathernecks, the ubiquitous prospect of defeat has never been more acute. Relying upon esprit de corps, they are compelled to abate their mortal fear so as to terminate the menace posed by an irreverent foe.
You're watching Tales of Virtual Combat on his Story Internet channel.